Okay. Hello, everyone. I've got a new setup going on, so I hope everything is working as it should. I see levels on my very, very tiny audio monitor. Let me know if you have any issues hearing me. It should be coming out of this microphone, so I should sound decent. Where do I even begin? Well, I guess the most obvious place to begin is thank you so much for the support on this latest video. Eurovision is dying. It can only blame itself. As I'm sure you could imagine, I was obviously hoping that it would resonate on an emotional level. And still, I am, every day that's passed since it's come out, I am more and more surprised and overwhelmed by just how much it has resonated with some people. So just thank you so much. I've been overwhelmed, and I hope that today we can just make it a little bit more of a two-way conversation, and I can answer some kind of recurring questions that I've had about the video or about what's going on with Eurovision in general. I have to say that one of the unexpected consequences of putting this video out is that I've had a lot of conversations with people in the Eurovision sphere, and I some of them have told me things in confidence, so I don't want to go into details or out them specifically. Just give me one moment. I'm going to let my dog out of the room. People that if you are familiar with certain figureheads in Eurovision in general, you would know some of the people that have reached out to me to congratulate me. They have also, in some instances, in some of the things that they've shared with me in confidence, have given me other things that I'm hoping to explore and to find good evidence of, so that it can be properly reported on and not simply just hearsay. Before I go any further, let me just say hello to those of you who have been sending in comments. I love this right off the bat. Christoph and Co. United by Brutal. I hope that you can catch up with it later, Lunar Prince. Hello to Joseph July. Giovanni says, studying or watching a whole live video about it, a video on YouTube, it's a matter of priorities. Yeah, it is a little bit meta this time, and I don't normally do something like this, but it has been, like I said, it has been quite unprecedented, and I thought that it would be an opportunity to, I don't know, just elaborate on a few things. Also, I do want to say, just as I'm seeing myself right now, like I haven't figured out a lighting setup here. This is a new place, and one thing that you might not know, well, you probably don't know this about the video, is that I shot that video back in June before I moved, and with the intention of getting it out a lot sooner. Life got in the way, but in the end, obviously, it came out at a time in which the discussion was reinvigorated because of these broadcasters announcing that they intended to withdraw. Just an annoyance on my end for technical reasons. I'm seeing how bright white I am here, and I'm just like, anyway, hello to ESC Mit Lucas. Hello to Haruka. Good to know that the audio is fine. I hope you're all having a brutal day. And yes, we are almost at 10,000 subscribers. You might have, and that was the thing, I didn't really know what to expect when signing on for this, because my audience is a little bigger than it was before. Good to see how much enthusiasm this has resulted in. Yes, of course, this will be available afterwards. I'm not gonna take it down. I mean, I'm not gonna be the one that takes it down, but I can't guarantee, depending on where the conversation goes, I can't guarantee that other powers might want to interfere. Hello, Violette of New York, I assume, is the NY. Eurovision is collapsing in on itself. And thank you very much, Squilliam. Do you want to elaborate on the reactions you've gotten, maybe from the people outside of the ESC bubble? I mean, I would say that firstly, it's been like overwhelmingly positive. As you can imagine, when tackling the subject matter this way, which it isn't the first time that I've done it, but it comes with its negativity, with the same accusations of anti-Semitism or, all kinds of ridiculous things, even though the video itself is not about Judaism and it's not even like, obviously Israel's participation hinges on so much of it. But I guess one thing that I want to express is that it's not Israel that is the problem. And I have another idea for a video that I would like to try and get out before this vote, if let's say that the vote goes ahead, because obviously now there's ceasefire talks, and we've seen with the UEFA vote that was postponed when it was supposed to take place. And yeah, anyway, that could be a whole different discussion. But yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of people saying that the video has really stuck with them. Seeing people say things like, I was sitting in silence for 10 minutes after that ended, that like to have people just kind of detail how it's resonated with them on an emotional level, like you can't really ask for anything better than that as a creative, I think. And I do want to, like, just kind of off the bat, once I read a few more comments, I do want to kind of get into how the tone of the video was actually shaped by a few factors. But yeah. Chris is asking, how possible do you think it is for the EBU to kick Israel out? I think the possibility is 100% on the table. I do not consider it a guarantee. And again, like as I was just saying, like now that there's ceasefire talks, all of a sudden people might have a change of heart and be like, well, we don't need to have this vote anymore. I disagree. I think that the problem goes much deeper than what's happening right now, and that a cultural boycott of Israel should be a priority for not just for Eurovision, but for all kinds of cultural institutions. But yeah. Hello to Dobik. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Hope I'm saying your name correctly. If you've never watched me on live before, just know that I'm not nearly as articulate as I am when I can edit things and say things like multiple times. Sky's asking, are you going to cover Junior Eurovision too? I don't do Junior Eurovision coverage. Sometimes if there's like a detail that I think is important to mention of something that happened in Junior Eurovision, then I will bring it into what I do here. I've always had some ethical concerns about Junior Eurovision as a concept. I know that not everybody agrees with that, and there are plenty of channels who are just they treat it as like it should be fun, and we don't need to take it so seriously. And like I definitely agree with that side of it. I'm not so keen about the putting very young and impressionable people in these high stress environments, and like I kind of feel that way about the entertainment industry in general, but nonetheless, yeah, so no Junior Eurovision coverage. We don't really do that here. Thank you so much, Matt. Jesse Bernard, hey Stuart, I watched this video and honestly it's hard hitting. However, I could say that this is mild compared to the absolute horror show that is Intervision. Yeah, and a number of you have been asking if I'll be doing stuff on Intervision. And some of what like obviously there are some people who were kind of very serious in this accusation towards me, but some people noticed the coincidence of me releasing this kind of scathing review of Eurovision on the day of the Intervision debut. I am not a supporter of Intervision. Do not watch Intervision. But I do think that there could be a conversation to be had about the threat that Intervision poses now that we're seeing how fragile Eurovision is. So yeah, probably a good opportunity to mention that. Using this as BG noise while I draw. Oh, cool. Well, we're gonna, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but there are some drawings that they're absolutely awesome. Gautam, hi Stuart, congratulations on the wonderful video essay and incredible success. Thank you so much. Ben Robertson wrote a brilliant article about the two possible scenarios for Eurovision 2026. It has my recommendation. I believe I have put it in the description, actually. Yeah, EC Insights. Yeah, so if you look in the description of this video, I've put it there. They also linked to 2 of my videos. So thank you very much, ENC. Thank you very much, ESC Insights. So yeah, a number of you are asking like how I think the vote will go. I honestly don't know. I think maybe we can get into more details about that a little bit later. Hello to Rezol von Lemmy. Greetings, Stuart. Your video is certainly very brutal. I love how this is catching on, and I do actually want to talk about where I got the idea for that, because I'm going to admit right now the idea of looping brutal was not originally mine, and I'm going to show you where I got that from. Okay, so I'll try and get back to these, but I do want to kind of get into some of the things that I have outlined to talk about. Oh, and with that, I need to throw in something in the little presentation box. But as I'm doing that, so if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen that as I was in sort of like the late stages of putting this video together, I had said that one of the things that I always have a hard time getting down is music. I think, hold on, where did I put this? Just give me 1 second. So yeah, music has always been a struggle in order to get the feeling down right when it's needed, because like, and I think a lot of editors can relate to this. Often, like, you have a music library that's available to you, and sometimes it can be a really big time sink to be looking for the right music when you need like a very specific feel. And in this case, you know, this is a sensitive video. So I wrote that post on Instagram just being like, if anybody has any tips for me, then I would love, you know, if you can recommend a different library than the one that I'm using, then, you know, I think that would be really helpful. So someone reached out to me, and you might not know them by name. His name is Bartol Stopic, but you definitely, if let's say that you followed Eurovision at least 2 years ago and you were following the national selections, then you might be familiar with, I'm just about to get it in now, just give me 1 second. You might be familiar with this song from Dora 2023. Yeah, so Bartol was the composer behind that song. If you saw the video that I did of Dora 2024, so the following year when Baby Lasagna won, the guest that I had was Sanja Dajic, who is from Croatia, and she was one of the lyricists on that song. And so we connected through her. I've known Sanja for a few years, since I was back when I was working with Eurovox. Yeah, so Bartol, we chatted for a bit. I sort of outlined what issues I was having and what my kind of expectations were, and he offered to compose the opening music, which was like better than I could have hoped for. And so basically I sent him the edit without any kind of reference track. I just sent him the edit as it was without any music, so just dialogue, and yeah, like all the same elements were there. There was like a little bit of tweaking that I did afterwards, but yeah, and so I sent that to him. He sent me something back. I gave him my notes, and like it was really over like the course of 2 days that the whole thing came together, and it was like, it was so good. I'm going to play the intro again, just so you can see, just like, because I want you to pay attention to the music. Would 2025 be the make or break year for the Eurovision Song Contest?
What can you tell us about the results?
The long-running show was coming out of its most controversial edition ever, and it needed to make it clear that it was going to change.
In 1956, here in Switzerland, a promise was made to create an
We're not going to be
international
rewatching
TV
the whole
show
video, by the
that
way, just
celebrates
the
music,
intro.
friendship, and togetherness.
With this promise came a new face to lead the show, and when asked about how he would be navigating the political climate, he repeatedly said that their intention was
to show the world as it could be.
To show the world how it could be.
Show the world how the world could be, not necessarily as it is.
And so, what does that world look like?
This event unites us all, crossing borders, crossing languages, creating a shared space.
Esta no es una petición contra ningún país, es un llamamiento por la paz, la justicia y el respeto a los derechos humanos acorde con la vocación integradora y pacífica del Festival de Eurovisión.
So he had a lot of really great ideas off the bat. One of them was that so when I sent this to him, I didn't have that like title made, and he basically it cut to black, and he had this, you know, that sort of like sustained note on the flutes, just kind of drag while Yuval appears and you see her name behind her. And he was like, oh, I thought it would be a good idea to have this like oud hit at the very end of that, because it's like, you know, a cultural nod, and it also kind of, I mean, these aren't necessarily his words, but my feeling from that was that it really, you know, communicates this sense of unease, right? So yeah, and Bartol's contribution, like with the music, like obviously it was a great way to set the video in motion, and that really helped me go forward and choose the rest of the music. And like even after having made it, I'm still like not 100% happy with all of the selections, but I'm more happy than I have been in the past. Like when I've rewatched my videos from before, like I'm thinking in particular the two kind of big ones that tackled the controversies around Eurovision. So like the one after 2024 and the one in the lead up to 2025, where I proposed the make or break concept. It always felt like I was just settling with what I could find, because I was spending way too much time trying to get the right track and just simply not finding it. And this time it really felt like it was like everything just kind of fit together really nicely. And then also starting the video off that way, it gave me the idea to ease into my dialogue in I think a more effective way, because from there it goes to the you know, like the black screen with the, you know, the location and the date. And I thought, you know, well, it'd be really kind of like not necessarily jarring, but it does show the real contrast between the world that's being pushed forward through Eurovision and like the world that people elsewhere are seeing. And so I thought, okay, I think maybe it would be a really cool idea to go into that, use a low pass filter so that you're just hearing the low frequencies, and then bring that up so that there's somewhat of a transition into that moment rather than just throwing you right into it. So yeah, it like the edit had changed quite a bit, especially in like the beginning part where I'm kind of like setting the scene, talking about, you know, where the protests were happening, what kind of people were opposed to Israel's participation, and what kind of actions they were taking. It would have been very different had that not been the way that things had started. So yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to Bartol. His Instagram is in the description as well, so you should definitely check him out. I know that he, beyond like, you know, he has, I imagine that he has many aspirations when it comes to, you know, making music. I'm pretty sure that he still has aspirations that are related to Eurovision. So yeah, he's going to be one to watch. And like also, Never Has such a great song. I was so like when Sonia shared that with all of us. Like you never really know what to expect when it's like a friend, and like we didn't know that Sonia had written any music before, and so like sometimes you're kind of like, am I gonna have to you know, like kind of fake enthusiasm about it, but we heard it and we were all blown away. We're like, this is so good. And it ended up being like a huge fan favorite. Obviously Let 3 ended up winning in the end, as they should have. And like when speaking to both Bartol and Sanya, they both were like, we weren't ready. And Let 3 were amazing. But yeah, so check that out if you haven't already. So let's see what you guys have been saying since then, since I kind of went off on this tangent. I think people probably realize by now that I'm not a fan of the logo myself. I wasn't a big fan of the logo before, I have to say. I wasn't. That was the logo that I was always familiar with, and to me it always looked a bit strange. But it's not the worst offense, I have to say, but I don't think it's made anything better. I think it looks quite cheap, if I'm being honest. Thank you, Joseph. The music was also and particularly effective when you posed your teaser as a real short. The sense of urgency really came across. Spanish commentator win. Go Spanish commentator, so proud. Actual W to RTVE, although I'm still not happy with them on Benidorm Fest, but that could be fixed. Yeah, I mean, Benidorm Fest is still, they're still going through growing pains, I have to say. But I mean, I think the only year that I was like really, really disappointed with was this past year. And it's not to say as if it was all bad. I think that they improved in some ways, like particularly with staging. But I think that first year has been really hard to top, because like it wasn't just slow-mo that turned out to be such a huge success for Spain at the contest, but like Ay Mama became a huge cultural, not a cultural movement, but it had such a big impact. It landed on the charts and stayed there for a long time. And like Tanchugueras obviously made a huge impact as well. I was a big fan of Raiden, and then Blanca Paloma's first song, she came back the next year and won the whole thing. Unfortunately, it didn't have the same she didn't have the same trajectory going into Eurovision, but I still consider that song to be amazing. Anyway, I love this. At this point, the controversy of 2023 was basically cute compared to what we ended up getting afterwards. Yeah, I remember when everyone's the worst thing that happened at Eurovision was that the juries chose a winner that the public did not choose. Remember when that was like such a big deal, and there were so many conspiracy theories about how that happened, when people just needed to understand how the system works a bit better. So yeah, that's like I think there's a video in which I ended and I was like, this debate will never end, and next year we're going to have a whole new set of controversies and the juries will be the first to blame. Something like that. And it's like, I think about that now and I'm like, oh, sweet summer child, you don't even know. Also, much respect to find this 50 view video featuring Martin Green and this soft power forum. So I've said this elsewhere. That video was like, when I put in like Martin Green Eurovision interview into YouTube, and I swear it was like 3 or 4 videos down. It was not that hard to find. And it's like, and the fact that the event is called the Global Soft Power Summit, and he's going on and on about how this is so great for the country and how it's great from an investment point of view. It's like, it could not be more opposite than what him and all of the other figureheads at the EBU and with other broadcasters are saying now, that, oh no, the countries aren't involved, the governments aren't involved. And it's like, we can very clearly see that they are, and that, and like, it doesn't even take, you don't need to look that deep, because anytime Eurovision is brought to, when they're planning the new event, like there's always government funding, and there's like a discussion at the, either the regional or the federal level, often the federal level, about, funding for Eurovision. Like, it is so obviously a soft power tool, and people need to completely reject, no matter who says it, no matter who says, oh, it's just the broadcasters, not the governments or countries, or that, the contest is a non-political event. People need to shoot that down immediately. There is no basis for that whatsoever. So anyway, okay, so I'm close to the bottom. So, mama, girl behind you. I don't know what you mean about that. It really pisses me all the politics inside my Eurovision, but what can I say? I'm still here. Did you see what ESC Gabe will release? I did, yeah. I saw the teaser for that, and I will definitely be watching that. I should also mention that if you haven't seen the other video that Gabe did 2 weeks ago, which came out a day after mine, definitely check that one out, because he firstly, like, he also made he used language that I have been challenged for by, you know, referring to the contest as dying. And I do want to kind of, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to focus on that. But what he did is he outlined the possibilities and you know, how no matter what the circumstances are, the outcome will come at a cost in some way or another. So yeah, that video is linked in the description as well. And also, like, thank you to him for redirecting people who saw that video to my video, a lot, and like really to everyone who has spread this video across the internet, because that, like, yeah, I'm overwhelmed. But yeah, so this is something that I do want to talk about, because one of the like recurring criticisms I would say is the fact that the video is called Eurovision is dying. And there are a number of things that people point to say, like, well, is it really dying? And so I want to clarify a few things, and I have my notes here because I needed to be prepared to talk about this. So one thing that I've learned from doing this for, you know, the past few years is that if you use any kind of emphatic language, especially in a title, people will accuse you of clickbait. At the same time, I also accept that titles are not my forte. I have struggled to make them in the past, but this one I am actually particularly proud of, because it does outline the urgency of the situation. And also, like, dying can imply a lot of things, because dying does not mean dead. A lot of people who have commented have said, in their view, Eurovision is already dead. I don't know if you heard that. There's someone's honking really loud, but and they've given their reasons for why they think the contest is already dead. And so I kind of want to address a few things about this. So, like, one of the arguments that people will make is that viewership is up. And I want to just like emphasize as well that, like, the viewership is up slightly. It's not up when we're talking about the last 10 years across the board, because, you know, when Russia was booted from the contest, there was an immediate loss of 20 million viewers. And so, like, in the event that Israel is excluded, and assuming that no one else withdraws as well, then there will also be a drop in the audience. And so, like, this has never really been about, like, the best decision from a business point of view. But with that in mind, because the figure that we often see this year, it's weird because in some places I've seen 166 million, in other places I've seen 167, which is like obviously it's a single numeral of difference, but it's still referring to a million. So yeah. In any case, if you had to guess how much consistent viewing time you needed to be tuned in for to register as a viewer, what do you think that would be? And, like, think about it. And you can even put it in the comments how long you think it is that you need to be tuned in order for their systems to register you as a viewer. So before I answer that, another thing to consider is that this 166 or 167 million viewer figure is across all three broadcasts. They do outline it as people. So I don't think that if it's the same person viewing all three editions, I don't think that counts as 3 individual views. But yeah, it's like, keep that in mind, because that also does put things into perspective. And also, like, between those 3 shows, the grand final is always the biggest. It's always the one that draws in the most people, because a lot of people don't even know that there are semifinals. So, okay, well, it seems that you guys already know, because yeah, in some cases it just has to be a minute. Yes. So 1 minute out of what is ultimately like 8 or 9 hours of broadcasting. That's all it takes to be registered as a viewer. And so While I'm not saying that this is exactly what's happening, I don't think that it should be ruled out that these people who are admitting to vote for Israel without having heard the song or have watched the rest of the program, they could very well be tuning in for the results, because that would obviously take longer than a minute, and because they would want to see the fruits of their labors. Now, again, I'm not saying that that's exactly what's happening, but I do think that that should be considered as a contributing factor as to why we aren't seeing any significant drop-off in viewership. Now, with that said, let's assume that, it really isn't a matter of like the general public is losing interest. And that's never been the argument that I've made, by the way. Let's assume that it is just the people like me who are on the internet and get accused of, we get blamed for bringing politics into the conversation. And, it's just us, the like crazy lefty YouTubers that have nothing better to do with their time than, cause shit. So let's assume that that's the case, and everybody else is completely unaffected by, what's been happening with Israel and Gaza, and they're tuning in with the exact same level of enthusiasm. How tragic is that? Is that not a tragedy in itself? And like, let's factor out Israel from the conversation, and let's assume, let's kind of think back to 2022, and let's say that the EBU had dug in their heels about Russia, because let's remember that they originally said that they were going to welcome a Russian entrant, and it wasn't until 10 broadcasters had put on pressure, a number of them had threatened to withdraw, that suddenly changed. And then it was about disrepute. And then a few years later, when the question is about Israel, it's, oh no, their government was too aligned with their broadcaster was too closely aligned with the government. So let's say that show went ahead, and people had been seeing the kind of horror that was coming out of Ukraine. And let's even say that that it was so bad that Ukraine had to withdraw, because we've seen that with other countries, like for example, Armenia in 2020 after the I think that was the second Nagorno-Karabakh war. They weren't able to enter Eurovision 2021, and Azerbaijan was. So imagine that people were still celebrating with the same level of vigor and enthusiasm the Russian entrance, much like they have, in the several years before when Russia was, enacting aggression on Ukraine and Georgia, so on and so forth. Would that not be like, knowing what we know now, would that not be like so tragic? And so I have never tried to argue that this is the right decision to make from a business point of view, because we all know that there are plenty of decisions, ethical decisions, that are not in the interests of business. The only reason why I've ever made this argument is because I think it's the right thing to do. And if it comes at a cost, so be it. So anyway, I wanted to address that because I felt that was important. I will go back to some comments now, but let's see where we left off. Okay. Yeah, so 2023 now feels like a small fandom argument compared to the last 2 years. Thank you so much about acknowledging the effort. Yes, it's you also happen to be a former staffer and public service broadcaster and fully get the attention to detail you showcase. Well, thank you very much. I've also I worked at the national broadcaster here, CBC, as well, and that I worked on like an arts and culture show. So that has also informed the way I go about like my journalism. But yeah, thank you very much. I do really appreciate that, especially when you hear that from like one creative to another. That's like it's incomparable. What else? Mostly I hate when people are strictly neutral. I love you more if you are brutal. I don't know if people are actually like that, but yeah, that's too bad. Okay, yeah, I think I went a little bit further back because I see you guys making your guesses about the duration. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Ukraine did withdraw in 2015. Chris saying Russia would also get a big televote score in 2022. Oh yeah, I mean, there are plenty of people who sympathize with Russia. As much as like the actions that were taken at all the institutional levels of, like after the full-scale invasion, like the impression that we have is that all of Europe stands with Ukraine, and that, at least as far as like protecting their right to freedom and life, like everyone should. Unfortunately, that's not the case. There are plenty of people who are supporting, Russia's war. At this point, let's just bring back Jeux Sans Frontières and Eurovision Young Dancers. So I'm actually not familiar with Jeux Sans Frontières. That is, I remember Eurovision Young Dancers, and not that I've seen it, but I remember that as a thing. And I think that Canada actually participated in that, strangely enough. Thoughts on Gautam's Intervision video? I have not seen it yet. That is in my queue. But yeah, that should be something that I check out. So yeah, I actually, like, I know, from what I know about Intervision, firstly, there's a big key difference in the way that they go about their business, because if you look at the participants, a lot of them are directly connected to the Ministry of Culture or whatever similar department in those respective governments. Of course, at Eurovision, they're saying, oh, it's just the broadcasters. And then the other thing too is that, like, in their rules, in Intervision's rules, they emphasized traditional family values, which is code for, no gay or queer or trans people. I also know that the winner of the contest from, I think it's Vietnam. I'm sorry if I got that wrong, but that person is also LGBTQ. So it's interesting to see how that happens. But yeah, I will at some point dive a little bit more into Intervision. I think I might have already said this, so apologize. I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but there is another video that I would like to get out before the vote in November. I'm not going to make any promises about it, but I think that it will address certain things, including what Raphael is saying here. Eurovision has always been political to me. If you look on which members of the EBU have been absent from the contest. So I mean, like, I have never made the argument that Eurovision is apolitical. In fact, I've always, from the very beginning, have said the very opposite, that the contest has always been political and it always will be political. And the video that I would like to make, again, don't want to make any promises, is going to be addressing how politics are not actually the problem, in my view. And it's interesting because there is this wide held attitude, not just with Eurovision, but with kind of all, all things where politics enter the discussion, that, like, that is inherently bad. And I don't think that's the case. Goofy Big Boy, I think Canada has participated in Intervision. I think in the old Intervision from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, there were a few Canadian appearances, but not in this recent one. Canada has participated in OTI, El Festival de la OTI, which was like the Latin American version of Eurovision. And they have a few complete shows on YouTube that you can check out. That was really interesting. My partner and I, we watched as many as were available. They're not all available, but like, he's from Brazil. And so to see his country participating, and then in a few instances, my country participating, that was like really weird. It was, that felt like, that really felt like Eurovision from the Bizarro world, but in a different way than this previous one. Just curious if you saw my question on the thumbnail and the use of Hazel over someone else on the board. Sorry if you did while I was gone. So yeah, I might have missed that. But I'm actually glad that you brought that up, because I do want to talk about Hazel and all the kind of talking points with respect to how she's included in the video and other matters. So about like Hazel's comedic style, because there have been a number of people who have said, like, okay, you're just not getting her humor. And I do like accept that that is a matter of taste, and that, not everybody's comedic style will be appealing to everyone. And I hope that people understand that I was not trying to make the argument that everybody thought the hosting was stiff and that she was a bad comedian. That is not how I felt. I felt as if a number of her jokes did not land, and there's a reason why I used. I should have clipped this. Maybe here I'm gonna try. If it doesn't work, then I won't keep you guys waiting. But I'm gonna try and upload the complete show, and I want to use an example and explain why I used that in the video. So this is from the first semifinal. Hello, Celine.
And as you see, I already took off
It's
what I call your
here. We are. Okay.
Tofflor in Sweden.
Tofflor, tack. Hur mår du idag? Yes, this is also a language. Apparently, I heard. I learned English.
All right,
this
that's a decent joke. Okay.
Swiss German, and then this afternoon they told me nobody's going to listen to me anyways because the commentators just going to speak over it. So, thank you, commentators. That's very wonderful.
Okay, it's frozen on my end. I don't know if it's frozen for you guys, but
and I thought, let's just throw them a curveball, show them something visual, or give them something that's off script. Do you have any hidden talents that you haven't shown within your performance at the Eurovision?
Well, I know how to juggle. Kevin is a great cook, and Axel can grow a mustache. So that's.
Round of applause for the mustache. I mean,
so as you guys know, Kai are comedians themselves.
Very good.
And then this is the follow-up.
You know what I call your mustache? A sweat stop dripping device. Okay.
And so, like, obviously, you can play with that. You can, find a way to like pour water on the joke and then have an exit that makes it funny again. But that's not what happens. It's just
gonna check out someone else now. Oh, do you want some chocolate? No, it's gonna melt. Yes, here, lady in the suit. You look like a detective. That's crazy. What are you doing here?
Okay, so it gets a little bit better. We eventually get there, but it takes way too long in my opinion. And so I think that it's a little bit of a risky comedic style to like pour water on the jokes of other comedians, right? Because usually the approach is like you build upon one another, right? And so and so I just have to say that I wasn't a fan of her comedic style. However, I don't put like all the blame on the hosting and like the content of the show on her, because there were plenty of other things that I just considered to be like low quality entertainment, like when they're making animal noises and throwing stuffed animals into the crowd, or like all the tongue gags, and even like the fact that she was buying time in the green room, using this like unscripted these unscripted moments, because I saw those rehearsals and it wasn't the same. It wasn't like how they do sometimes where they're using the same jokes and they're really trying to get it down to a T. It was freeform, and it was such like a time filler. My suspicion is that they needed to do that because of the new qualifier reveal, where they needed to organize that. Don't like quote me on that, because I don't know that for a fact, but like just trying to apply my broadcast knowledge and the fact that that was a new thing. And we were cutting to this segment that just felt like just dragged and dragged and dragged. And for me and for other people too, because other people have come in my defense and said, I also thought the hosting was cringe. It felt like low quality entertainment. And so like with regards to hosting in general, because another argument that people have made is that they feel like hosting in Eurovision is often not great when we're talking about like television in general. And I definitely attribute that to the fact that there are a lot of hosts who are not speaking their native language. And I definitely agree with that when we're talking about like, especially like, let's say the last 20 plus years of Eurovision. But in the 2020s, we've actually been pretty spoiled when it comes to hosting. And like the two previous shows, when we're talking about Liverpool 2023 and Malmö 2024, were actually really good. And again, like in Liverpool's, using Liverpool as an example, the majority of them were speaking their first language. The only one who wasn't was Julia. But like they were great. Petra, of course, amazing. And like like Malin obviously, was playing second fiddle to Petra, but I think everybody knew that. I think she knew that as well. And I thought that like she still, held up. And another thing that I want to say about the Malmö hosting is that I think that if the show wasn't overshadowed by all the controversy, people would have picked up on certain things that like they were doing that were really, really funny. Like one of the recurring gags that I saw was that because everybody knew that the expectation was for ABBA to show up, right? Or like that was the hope that they would be teasing to something and then eventually ABBA would show up. And there are many times in the show in which they're setting up to something and then it takes like a random turn to something that's like much less impressive. And I thought that was so funny. Unfortunately, like by the time we got to the grand final, the tension was so high and the mood was completely soured that I don't think it really mattered. But if you do rewatch those shows, like pay attention to that, because I think that was actually really good. Now, the only outlier I would say in the 2020s is obviously Turin, where the hosts just weren't, one, they weren't prepared enough, and two, they were depending too much on star power. I'm pretty sure that everyone, maybe not everyone, but I think a lot of people lost a bit of respect for Mika and I'm forgetting her name already, Laura Pausini, which isn't to say like I do actually like both of them a lot as artists, but yeah, like it was messy, and so yeah, like I just felt like the whole vibe of the show was incredibly awkward, and then when you bring in the fucking doesn't matter if you're good or brutal thing, which sounds so tone deaf, like that was just like it was the cherry on top of a fucking shit cupcake, Sorry for the language, but it just I need to express like how like it just sat so poorly with me, and really like that was kind of the feeling that I was trying to put into the video so that would resonate with people. In any case, so yeah, like I totally get people coming to Hazel's defense. I also wasn't really that impressed with the other two. Like Sandra is obviously, she's not the comedian of the two, but I did find that her delivery at times was a bit stiff. And then like with Michelle, you could tell that she wasn't as prepared as the others, because by the time she joined us in the grand final, she just, she stammered a lot more. She wasn't in the zone quite as much as the other two. But in any case, yeah. So I wanted to bring that up, and then there might have been something else. Oh, okay. So yeah, this is also, I think, an important thing to mention too, because with respect to the brutal line, I have had a few people be like, "You're not seeing the satire in it," and I had hoped that by using the example of the line from Malmö 2024, I was communicating that I did see that it was an attempt at satire. I think the most important thing to consider is where this line is coming from, because if you take this exact same joke as it is, and let's say if it was coming from a sketch comedy, a comedy sketch from a completely different program, and they were satirizing Eurovision as a whole, you could take the joke exactly as it is, and I think that the satire would be much more effective. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is that this is coming from the same program that goes, now let's welcome Israel. They're represented by someone who, survived the October 7th attacks by Hamas. And sorry, Spain, if you dare mention the tens of thousands, now possibly hundreds of thousands of people who have been killed since then, and that Israel has used October 7th as a justification to enact that killing, you and only you are making the contest political. And so like, it really doesn't matter what the intentions were here, because it shows just how detached from reality they are. And it's like, it's too real. If you like, for me, it's almost like a litmus test for who has been paying attention to what has been happening in Gaza, because I don't care what your political beliefs are. No human being should be going through what the Gazans are going through right now. And also like, the Palestinians in the West Bank, who have been facing not as severe of violence and displacement and all that, but more and more, it has been becoming a lot more similar to what's been happening in Gaza. And so it really was like it was a moment in which I was like, wow, we really do live in two completely different worlds. Let me say that again. It was a moment in which I felt like we do live in two completely different worlds, because I can't imagine if you have been paying attention and if you feel any level of empathy for the suffering that people are going through, that you would have ever thought that that was okay. And so, yeah, that's why it ended up being an anchor of this video. And I don't accept, like, I saw, who was it here? Yes, William saying satire as an excuse is insane. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes I 100% accept that was not the intention. Now, if let's say that there was an ulterior motive here, and the writer of that joke was aiming to generate backlash against the contest, because then, like, by putting the line in, it exposes this hypocrisy, then I could see some like next level genius in that. But the downside of that is, like, I don't think that was the case at all, because you have to use Hazel. Like, Hazel's being thrown under the bus in order for that to happen. So yeah, like I am not. I cannot believe that was allowed. Too many people hide behind satire as an excuse to hide behind bad comedy. If you have to explain the satire, you failed. Yeah, and I mean, like, in fairness, there were plenty of people who, I guess, saw it as more of what it was intended to be. I did actually find, someone on Reddit found an interview with the writer of that joke, who said that it was their intention was more to poke fun at the irony of Switzerland's neutrality, which, like, you know, people are having more and more of an idea of how it's not really neutral. But, like, again, really missing the full scope of what's being implicated here. So yeah. And this I definitely agree with. I don't know why Petra was there. Not necessarily. I don't necessarily agree with getting tired of her, because I love Petra. But like, I was really surprised, because I was like, wasn't 2024 enough for you? Didn't you? Who knows? Who knows what her position is on all of this? But yeah, I was actually kind of disappointed, especially because, like, the act itself, it was such an obvious attempt at doing what Sweden does, and Sweden just did it better. You know, like, when you watch either any of the contests that SBT has hosted or Melodifestivalen, they always have some sort of musical review. And so, like, they're a lot more practiced in that. And when it comes to the commentary and, like, the kind of jokes that they put in, you can definitely get you get a much better sense of how they are very genre savvy. And, like, Edward af Sillén, who has written the past few editions, like, you can tell that he is a Eurovision fan, because, like, even that whole interval act of, like, we just love Eurovision too much was using so much, like, in-universe humor, and you know, like it just really goes to show you that, like, there is somebody on their team that really understands us and people who are overly enthusiastic, some of whom are so overly enthusiastic that they missed the satire on that entire act. But I mean, I guess it just goes to show you that, like, you know, comedy doesn't work for every single person. So yeah. What else are you saying? If they made a brutal joke on Ukraine, I feel like people won't use the "oh, it's sarcasm" excuse. Yeah, please don't poke the bear with that one, I would say. Did I really? Oh, okay. Well, that's something to celebrate. I wish I didn't even bring a drink that isn't water with me, but I do actually need to top up, because I am parched. Pardon me. Yeah, I should have brought, like, one of the things that has become more popular, at least that I've noticed in the last little while, because a lot of businesses are boycotting American goods. You know, we're starting to see more, like, homemade products, and there's this brand, not sponsored, by the way. I know that people always feel the need to say that, but there's this like, soft drink that I've come across called Sapsucker, which is made with tree sap. And, you know, it's all the kind of, like, typical flavored water flavors that you would get. but it's like it's very lightly sweet. But yeah, anyway, I wish I had one of those. Your video was and still is trending in Austria, by the way. Good to know. Most of our people are fully behind you. It's not our fault that the government is the way that it is. And so it wasn't because I had underestimated Austria's actual winning potential this year, even though I did. But I made a trip to Austria after this year's contest because I have family in Austria. And so I got to see them. I also got to see the country from one end to the other by train, which is beautiful. Highly recommend that you do it. If you're going to Eurovision next year, I would say do that. Don't even bother with the contest. Just hop on a train. I had to hold myself back from taking pictures of every single mountain. But in any case, like I was honestly a bit worried about if this conversation were to come up, how would it go? Because the attitude about the DACH countries, Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, is that because of historical significance to the Holocaust and World War II, that there is a lot more sympathy towards not only Jewish people, but Israelis as well. Fortunately, with the conversations that I had with the people that I met there, it is not so black and white, and people do understand that there is a limit to what is quote unquote self-defense. But yeah, so that's really encouraging to hear that. 2024, I feel that was the warning of the consequences that what Israel would bring if they stay in. Okay, I do understand what you're saying here. So I was interviewed by someone. I'm not going to spoil it because obviously their piece will eventually come out. But we were kind of reflecting on the past 2 years, and my attitude is that I feel like Malmö needed to happen. Not only because of, revealing the lengths that Israel and their delegation would go to, but just in general, like to understand what it means to really stick to this fake, non-political approach. 2025 did not need to happen. 2024 should have been where lessons were learned. And like, in a sense, we averted 2024 with Russia's ban, because I'm sure it definitely would have gone. It definitely wouldn't have gone the exact same way. But I feel like the tension would have been just as high. The artists would have had probably a hard time having to have these forced interactions with the Russian delegation. But yeah, like, I think that was something that was averted in 2022. But in 2024, we confronted it, and unfortunately, lessons weren't learned. Sorry, I get, after talking for a while, I do get a little bit less. The enunciation slips a bit, but yeah, I agree. Why is a Swede playing William Tell in Switzerland? It's a good question. I have no answer. Hello to Tom Yam. I like Hazel, just unfortunate that she was in that position. One thing to keep in mind as well, so they might have different terms for this in different industries, but in like Canada and the United States, there's this designation known as like above the line and below the line, and it refers to people who work on usually like a film or television production. And if you're above the line, you're usually in a high position in which you're making significant creative choices or like, financial choices. And your reputation is on the line with the success of the product, like, to varying degrees, because obviously you can still have something that turns out to be not very good and survive from that. But it's like, it is sort of it's one of the main reasons why people emphasize that there are some people who are above the line and others who are below the line, because if a movie flops, no one's going to be like, wow, that production assistant really dropped the ball on that. And so I bring this up to say that in most production environments, the hosts would have the ability to deny or to decline to put themselves in a situation that makes them look bad. And so it should be considered that Hazel did agree to sing this line. Maybe there were other factors at play that made her perform it when she herself didn't want to. But like, again, I'm not putting all the blame on her, but unfortunately, she was sort of like the lamb that was sacrificed in order for this point to be made. But yeah, anyway. Stay hydrated, thanks. Knowing how the ORF does their shows, they might tone it down in comparison, but I wouldn't be surprised if they take direct inspiration from Sweden's ESC hosting. Like Sweden, SVT in particular, they often kind of set a standard in certain ways. I'm not saying that they're the best at everything that they do, but they have a good reputation for a reason. And so, yeah, like to me, it's no surprise that, the Made in Switzerland act and then a few other elements felt like very similar to the Malmö show specifically. And I think that was also like one of my biggest gripes with like the programming in Basel overall, because nothing felt original. The only thing that felt original was the qualifier reveal. And while it did create like a few moments that were different and exciting, like I think a lot of people referred to when it was, I think it was Slovenia, Azerbaijan, and Portugal, who were all considered like likely non-qualifiers, and then Portugal ended up qualifying. So yeah, like it did create those moments, and I thought that was exciting. But I felt like the postcards felt exactly like the ones from Vienna 2015. The overall vibe, I mean, I've spoken at length about the overall vibe, but yeah, like, yeah, I just don't feel like there was, apart from the stage, I do want to say that the stage was really, really cool. And I think that it was used in really effective ways. When it comes to those kind of like technical aspects, I do think that Eurovision still holds up, but yeah, I don't think that Basel was a good representation of Eurovision as a whole. Shout out to the Global Sumud Flotilla. They have sent their second rounds of boats. Something that I learned yesterday, and this is actually like really, really amazing. So as much as the flotilla was intercepted, all the boats eventually were intercepted. There was one that made it through into what should be the territorial waters of Palestine. It too was intercepted, but because Israel's navy was so occupied with that, Palestinians in Gaza were able to fish for the first time in months without being shot at. And so, as much as they might not have been able to bring the aid that they had themselves in their cargo, they did provide relief in one way or another. It's just unfortunately it's not enough relief to resolve the situation. Alexander Pagel saying, UK switching to online voting feels like an indication that we're shifting towards primarily online voting in future contests, if they do happen. And yeah, that I would say that seems to be where things are heading as well. They just have to make sure that their security is up to date, and that, I don't know if you noticed, but in the show, the hosts say you can vote up to 20 times. The fine print says you can vote up to 20 times per payment method. So they definitely weren't downplaying the fact that you could vote more than 20 times, but I think that it's quite clear to a lot of people now, like, why should that be allowed? Even just the quantity of 20 votes, if they were to keep that and try and like, curtail the excessive voting beyond that, putting 20 votes towards one song seems so unnecessary. But yeah. The voting spamming should be more of an outrage. Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's turning the entire thing into a farce. Oh, this is interesting. Israeli participation aside, Malmö is simply not a good city to host Eurovision. It was boring in 2013 and it was absolutely horrendous in 2024. I don't know about 1992, however. Now, I have to say, as the city itself, I really loved Malmö. Like, I am considering if I ever have to, move abroad, like that would be a really cool place to live, I have to say. when talking about the contests, my biggest issue with 2013 is that I don't think they had very good songs, and I feel like that year in particular, like there were a lot of non-qualifiers that I think were better than the qualifiers. But 2024, I thought the songs were great. The stage was interesting. It wasn't like the most visually appealing, but they did some cool things with it. And yeah, like obviously, you know, you can't divorce the feeling of tension from all that. So as I'm going through these, oh, this is interesting. Just pulling this up because this is directly responding to something that I was curious about. The above below the line distinction definitely exists in DACH broadcasters, but it's mostly being felt, not seen nor described in the open. Yeah, and like I've never necessarily worked on a production in which like people would be like, well, that person is above the line and you are below the line. But it's just more so it's like, I guess it is sort of like an unspoken rule here as well, or like it's only brought up when necessary, but it's just I think it's helpful for people who are not industry people to understand. But yes, I was it had occurred to me that I have this in the queue to show, and I don't know if there's necessarily an opportunity in the discussion to show it, but somebody earlier had said that they were listening to this while drawing, and if you haven't seen this already, I want to show you. This is artwork that was made by Beatrice Baranite Lau. I hope I'm saying her name right. She did this for a project. I believe that her course is on like editorial illustrations. And so she reimagined the video as an op-ed, which is so cool. And like this image is like, I'm so in love with this. Even like the way that the man, so basically she explained that like the man below is representing like the men in suits at the EBU who are making the decisions, and then obviously the shadow is the monster that's, you know, kind of coming after them, and then you can see as well like the face is actually the EBU logo, and so like it is a very difficult feeling to describe when your work inspires someone else to apply their own professional skills and turn it into something that like just looks so fucking cool. So yeah, like I thought this was amazing. Her details are in the description as well, so please please check out her stuff. On her Instagram, she also has a lot of artwork that's related to Eurovision. So like if let's say that you're not so keen on this thing, you might find other things that appeal to you. So yeah, I wanted to give her a shout out because that is so awesome. Thank you so much, Beatrice. And yeah, like the way I never expected this to be such a like a collaborative effort, I have to say. But yeah, I'm so touched. I think that frame made every performance look super flat, which only worked for Luxembourg's dollhouse aesthetic personally. I was really kind of split on the frame as well. Like, especially when they released the stage, it looked a bit strange to me. I think for the what do you call it? For the stage ready, before the song, they have the country name and then the song title and the writers and the way that they fixed that with augmented reality. I thought that looked great. Whether or not it was applied the best in the actual acts, like, yeah, I wouldn't say so. And when we think about, it's interesting sometimes when you look at certain editions of the contest and you see whether or not the songs that did well actually like use the features of the stage as they're intended, and a lot of them kind of don't. And so like when we think about Austria, for example, Austria's was very contained up against the LEDs, and you could have performed that on almost any stage. Whereas if you compare that to what's one that used, I mean, like I guess, yeah, like Luxembourg's would have been one that kind of used it a bit more. Belgium didn't qualify, but that's another one that stands out in which like Sebastian was walking back and forth on that like long strip underneath the arch. You have like the Eurodab interval act, and like those ones are obviously, because they're produced in-house, like they're more keen on making the most of the elements that are available to them. But yeah. Hello to Marcella. Did you get any response from broadcasters / delegations on your viral video or any other impact you could tell us? Curious to know about the impact that your video got. So I don't want to out any individual, but the short answer is yes. Like I've had unbelievable conversations since this video has come out. So yeah, I don't know if there's really anything else that I can say. But yes, like I have, it is like one of the things that like it's difficult to ask for more when there are people who know the events as intimately as some people do, and they reach out to you because they were moved or impressed or anything like that. But yes, that has been a result. Slightly off topic, but curious, how did you find Vienna 2015? Was it good, bad, ugly? How about the songs? Did you find the hosts good or stilted? How would you rate it? Interesting that you're asking about this because yeah, Vienna is not a particularly strong contest, I think, in any regard, personally. And kind of like in almost every respect. I don't think that the songs are as bad as, let's say, like 2013 or 2011, but I consider it to be like kind of weak overall. That stage in particular, I feel like was very hard to use. And when you look at the like camera work, I feel like they had realized with how the structure was that it was quite limiting from a, you know, as far as what kind of angles they could get, because there's one side of the stage that has more of the structure than the other. The other is a little bit more exposed. And so, yeah, like the camera work that year, it feels kind of strange to me. But it's not bad. Like, I think that in terms of the aesthetic, because I think the stage itself looks good, but it just maybe wasn't the most versatile. And when you compare that to like 2014 stage was very versatile. 2016 stage, blah, it's a tongue twister. That stage was also really versatile. 2017's was not, but I think there were a lot of things that impacted that one. In any case, yeah, like that one, not a strong year in any regard. And like the hosting, yeah, the hosts, at least they didn't do anything that was like, that I can remember that was like really in bad taste. There is one really funny moment when I think it's in the second semifinal and they're interviewing the 3 big 5 that they're featuring there. And they're talking to the Makes who are representing Austria. And the guy's in the middle of telling this anecdote about how they were partying with Anne-Sophie. And she cuts away because, like, I guess they were running out of time and she didn't realize. And then so she cuts him off and goes, and now back to the studio, or whatever she says. And just like the implications of that are like, so like, wait, you were doing what with Anne-Sophie? I don't, like, I only watched that once. So like, it's possible that that was intentional too. And if so, like, that's a bit of a creepy joke to include. But yeah, that I think is the hosting moment that stands out. Eurovision talking bits were always cringy. It just becomes sinister when there's an extra lens over it. I agree in some ways. Again, like, I do think that in the 2020s, we've seen some pretty effective hosting. It doesn't mean that every single moment was, you know, perfect. I didn't talk about Rotterdam, but what I think worked really well about Rotterdam was that I felt like each of the 4 hosts found their place. Whereas like in 2023, the hosting was great overall, but like Hannah Waddingham steals the show, right? And then 2024, like nobody was going to outdo Petra, but like, I think like they went into the show knowing that. And so, yeah, like, I think that is something that gets overlooked about Rotterdam's show, was that they like really evenly gave the hosts individual moments. And then also too, like, it was great that they had kind of promoted Nikki Tutorials, because originally she was just like an online host. And I imagine that she wasn't supposed to be on stage. Like they probably would have kept those inserts where she was doing like I don't remember what she was talking about, but they had those like video inserts, and that was probably the full extent of what they were going to do had Rotterdam 2020 gone ahead. But she was brought into the show, and it was really, really great. I'm really happy for her. I'm going to look at my notes and see if there's anything else that oh, okay. So I haven't talked about the end of the video. Yes, let me pull this up. Just give me one moment. So as you guys have made very clear to me, I think I'm actually going to try and no, I can't do it that way. So I'm going to maybe take a quick screen cap. But yeah, as you guys have made very clear, the ending of the video has left a mark, as it was intended to. And it is not usually my approach to kind of punch people in the gut at the end of a video, but yeah, like the thing that the ultimate goal here was to make, or to at least try and make people feel the way that I have felt for these past 2 years about this kind of weird duality where Eurovision is projecting itself as the good guys and, you know, actually doing something for peace and completely circumventing that by its actions. Now, I'm bringing this Instagram profile to your attention because this is where I got the idea to loop brutal at the end of the video. So Peter posted something that happens like just shortly after that interval act had debuted. So it was before the final, sometime after semifinal 1. And in his video, he did something that was like similar to what I did, but it wasn't the exact same. I was going to pull up the video, but now that I've gone back and found it, it has a content ID warning on it. So it would not be wise for me to play it here. And while it isn't necessarily graphic from a gore point of view, it is graphic from a violence point of view. So he did, you know, kind of the same thing, non-political, strictly brutal, doesn't matter if you're good or brutal, and then brutal loops over one clip of what appears to be an Israeli soldier stomping on the head of what is probably a Palestinian. It's unsettling to say the least. But yeah, I wanted to acknowledge that this is where I got the idea. Now, obviously, I wasn't going to just take what he did and do exactly the same thing. I built upon it, and with some of the images that I included, like the intention for it was to be for it to be overwhelming, because it should be overwhelming. Like, again, no one, not a single human being should be going through what the Palestinians are going through right now. And I don't care what your political beliefs are, from what part of the world you come from, everybody should feel that way. But yeah, I like to make it overwhelming, and then also to, at the very end of that sequence, are photos of primarily journalists, healthcare workers, and children, to, you know, outline like how tragic this has all been. And it was important to me to not just show those, like, you know, sadly humiliating images of, you know, people begging for food and the explosions and you know, children in tears and all that, but to also show them, you know, at moments in their best. And you know, admittedly, it happens quite fast, and I was really trying to get the timing right on that. I hope that you guys also understand that to put something like that together, it does take an emotional toll as well. And so, and it also happened on, it was the last part of the video that I had to put together on a day that was not a good day. So yeah, I think if I would have had a bit more, if I would have given myself more time, and if I would have been in a bit of a better headspace, then I might have gotten the details of that down a little bit better. But in any case, I did want to show that these are people with lives and dreams, because for too much of the last 2 years, it's been this humiliating, unthinkable horror. So yeah, I felt it was important to build upon that. And a number of you have asked for me to make that specific part of the video a reel. And the reason why I'm not doing that is because then I feel like I'd be really stepping on Peter's toes, because his already exists as a reel. I think I don't have it now, but I can add the link. Let me take this off. I can add the link to that specific reel if you want to see it. Again, it's if you want to put yourself through that again. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And yeah, it's not usually my approach to be like, well, that I'm gonna do something very similar, but I felt like there was really no other way to end the video. Also, his caption was great. It was, what did he say? Where is it? Every day is like a new Black Mirror episode. And that's what Eurovision feels like to me. It feels like Black Mirror. It feels like that second episode from the first season where, you know, like people are forced to consume entertainment as currency. And yeah, anyway. So yeah, I wanted to make that clear. If Israel's kicked out in 2026, do you think there will be any countries that will withdraw in solidarity? If so, who do you think is the most likely to do so? So this has been speculated on. I do think that it is a possibility. I think that it's equally possible that there will be broadcasters that throw up a fit and don't actually act on it. Like, you know, they'll pull out the same things that have been said this whole time. Oh, the event is supposed to be non-political, blah 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 blah. But yeah, like I think that it's definitely possible that we could lose someone. And like the country that a lot of people point to is Germany because of historical reasons. There was an Israeli journalist who had said that it would be both Italy and Germany, but that has not, like, until you have to treat that as hearsay until the broadcasters themselves say something. And what we do know from Italy is that I'm not going to get the details on this perfectly, so I apologize, but they have a board of RAI that makes certain decisions. It's comprised of 6 members plus a president, and 3 of those members have recommended that Italy withdraws if Israel is allowed to participate. And so if that were to happen, that would be a second Big Five country threatening to withdraw from the contest, and it would then make it more expensive for everyone else. So what's happening right now is a big deal. It is, when we're talking about Eurovision as a whole with respect to all global events, and specifically, you know, Gaza, Israel, Palestine in general, it is not the most important thing, but Israel's participation in the contest is clearly important to their government. Isaac Herzog, who's the president of Israel, he was the one who had intervened when Khan was going to be disqualified in 2024 after their songs were rejected for political content. He's also named in South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice as an example of a politician that has used genocidal rhetoric. He has made guaranteeing Israel's Eurovision participation a top priority for him. That's what they're saying. So, yeah, but you know, the governments are not involved. Thank you for speaking out for a lot of fans. My pleasure. I don't know if I would say it's my pleasure, but you're welcome. One thing that I haven't really talked about, and I think it would be nice to address this, because, like, yes, creators have been, I would say, apart from, like, you know, you folks, when talking about like figureheads in the Eurovision bubble, there have been a lot of creators that have reached out to me, and I've had great conversations with them. I have, for the last 2 years, felt very isolated from other creators, because I did not see the important conversations being reflected in what they're doing for the most part. I'm not saying that it's everyone. There were definitely a few people who have always included that. Also, I want to say as well that I don't have my eyes everywhere. I don't watch every single creator, but I do know of specific people who have made an effort to acknowledge things and not beat around the bush, and I think that that's great. But one thing that has come up is that before this video, I've had people come up to me and be like, thank you for speaking up. I could never do that because I would lose my accreditation. You might know this already, but I did not get my accreditation this year either. Yes, I was watching rehearsals. They are not that hard to access. I'm not going to share how I did it, but I was declined accreditation. And after I was declined, I put out a call out because there were certain people talking to me about how they were also declined. And I put out a call out. I asked, if there were people who had been previously successful in getting their accreditation who were declined this year. And a number of people got back to me. And do you want to guess what the through line was of all of those people? I'm sure it was that they had made some sort of criticism of Israel. Now, I'm not saying that that was the only reason that people who were previously successful were declined, but it was a recurring reason. That is unacceptable. It's simply unacceptable. And so, while I obviously on one level, I am very grateful that there are people who are recognizing that, things are coming out when they feel that they can't say these things. I do think that people should reflect on why they aren't able to say these things, because if what's holding you back is accreditation, I think you need to gain a little bit of perspective on what is important, because accreditation to the contest is not that important. I'd say it's not important at all. Another thing to consider as well is that what this last edition has proven is that you are not given accreditation based on your professional merits. You are given accreditation based on whether or not the EBU sees you as useful to them. And so that is something that I think every single creator needs to reconcile with, because I'm not of the mentality that every single association with Eurovision, whether you're a fan or a creator like me or an artist, I'm not a fan of this kind of reductive thinking of if you're engaging with the contest, then you are guilty of genocide. I would never say that, and I think it's weak reasoning. But also, I think that people need to understand that they have a much closer proximity to the genocide because Israel is still involved in this contest. And with all the things that we know right now, I think people really need to ask themselves if this is something that they still want to be pumping out positive content about. If you have not made any single criticism, and yet you feel that criticism, you see that you see the importance in having that addressed, then I think you need to ask yourself and whoever you work with whether or not this is something that you want to continue with, because it should not be allowed to continue this silence. And I think I have seen a lot more, maybe not a lot more, but I have seen people say that they have gained a bit of perspective themselves, and they now have a better idea of how they want to go forward, which is great. And again, that's on top of so many other things, it's difficult to know more to ask for, but yeah, I just I wanted to address that. Okay, yeah, so I already addressed this. Yes. Plot twist: Austria will not host the contest if Israel leaves. I don't think they've actually said that, but that would be funny. They just pull the plug. Thank you, Puerta Churuca. I don't know what that word means, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. What else is being said here? I'm definitely grateful that you guys are engaging with one another, because if everybody was asking a question, I would be I'd be so overwhelmed. I do think that I'm going to go over my notes and see if there's anything that I left out that was really crucial that I wanted to get to. No, I think I covered everything that I wanted to. And so I'll stay on for a little bit longer. Ask your questions if you have them. What else can I say? Yeah, ask your questions if you have them, and I will take a drink of water in the meantime. But yeah, it has been an hour and a half. Maybe I'll do a little stretch, because sitting for sitting for all this time is making me feel weak. So I'm gonna do a little stretch. Off-camera stretch. Okay. Are you still in Canada or did you move to another country? I am still in Canada. When I kind of got whisked away, I'm trying to think of the best way to characterize it, because I almost feel like Eurovision kind of got under my skin, and while like it was definitely a conscious choice to make all the decisions that I've made, like it almost did feel like a little bit of brainwashing, but nonetheless, when I was kind of whisked away into this world, I was living in Spain, and so that's one of the reasons why like I can cover Benidorm Fest with a little bit more insight than I guess the average person who has never lived there. So yeah, like it was thanks to that experience that I actually kind of saw Eurovision for what it was. I didn't know about it before then, but it was like it was I don't know. I had it explained to me in a very reductive way, and it left a much more positive impression than I was expecting. Thoughts on Bambie Thug not singing Doomsday Blue in concerts due to Israel's participation. So I've seen them take a bit of heat for this, and like I accept that like maybe you could question how effective that is of a protest. At the same time, I think that like there have been so many, like just a lot of people feel hopeless, and if that makes them feel like they're sending a message, then I'm okay with it. I mean, obviously it is their, I assume it's their most successful song, so I don't know, but yeah, I think people should maybe be a little bit kinder when artists make those kinds of decisions. So yeah, that's what I'll say. What is your thought about how it impacts? Can you be a bit more specific? Like are you talking about this specific edition? Because I'm not really sure I'm getting your question. Time to ask about your opinions on the inactive countries, especially the weird ones like Bulgaria, Moldova, or Morocco. Bulgaria had a great run in the late 2010s. They ended that with a bit of a dud. Yeah, and for them, like the issue has always been funding. To my knowledge, it would be nice to see them come back someday with the same like quality, definitely. Moldova is, I mean, Moldova is kind of in their own league in the sense that like they like their qualifying record has been pretty good overall. Obviously they've had their misses, but yeah, they're not always a personal fan of mine, but I've also been won over by them when I had like initially dismissed them. Like I wasn't crazy about Dubsy Dub's initial song. Excuse me. Initial song. No, about their 2022 song. Sorry, English is starting to fail me, but I wasn't a fan of Tren Tulel. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of it when I heard it at first, but with time I grew to appreciate it. And then also like that was one of the songs where after having it explained to me, I saw it in a different light. It's still not a favorite of mine, but I gaining a bit of understanding helped me to see beyond some of the aspects of it that I didn't particularly enjoy. And then Morocco, we've only seen one appearance of. I thought it was quite a nice song. It's not like an amazing song, but you know, yeah, it was cool to see a song completely in Arabic, I would say. Do you really think that all the members can kick off the contest, can kick that country out of the contest? I do think that it is a possibility. I think that there are no guarantees, and for me, it will not make a difference about the decisions that I make. I love Deslocado and so proud that my country represented this beautiful song, even if it got a low place. Yeah, definitely. And that's another one that's grown on me a lot. I am, as time passes, I am more and more embarrassed that I did not put that song in my Festival de Canção coverage. I was going off of YouTube views instead of Spotify views when I should have taken a look at Spotify. But I'm really happy for them because it has really taken off. It's still the third most streamed song from this year, behind Espresso Macchiato, who was like Tommy Cash was the biggest star this year, and then Bara Bastu is in the lead. So yeah, really happy for them. 2026 is the last straw. We dodged the bullet, but the gun is still loaded and pointed directly at the heart of the contest. If Israel stays, they will cheat a win next year. Yeah, I mean, the stakes are still high. We need the relegation system back, IMO. I don't know about that, because that leads to countries having to make preparations for the contest and then being suddenly required to sit out a year. So I'm not a big fan of that. Hosting OGAE Austria is hosting a Eurovision concert in Stadhall tonight with a lot of artists performing. Also, some have criticized Israel's participation. The elephant in the room might be addressed. Ooh, keep me posted on that. I'd be really curious to hear what happens. I remember when Azerbaijan was abusing the voting system and got good results. Yeah, amazing how that like got swept under the rug. You guys might know, but like Azerbaijan has also been part of my partial boycott since 2024. And you don't need to make it political to boycott Azerbaijan because they have been caught cheating in the contest twice and they are still around. Granted, they've also been laying low for the last 2 years, which doesn't necessarily make their participation any like more justified. But like, I think that the question needs to be asked about that. If you ever come back to Italy, I'll offer you some coffee. Typical Italian tradition. Man, I'm so ready. I will go back to Italy on any day. I would actually like, I know it's really expensive to go to Sanremo, but I'll still keep that as a bucket list thing. If Israel is excluded from Eurovision, wouldn't some of its supporters probably react unpeacefully? What's your opinion? Greetings from Turkey. I'm not really sure what you mean by unpeacefully. I think Israel will definitely like. I think that people should also keep in mind that them getting out of the contest and not being able to use it as a tool for Hasbara will not end the Hasbara. They're definitely going to take advantage of the situation as best as they can. They're going to try and twist it in their favor, as they always do. It is encouraging to see that like Israel is losing the information war now. The decades of Hasbara are being undone, and in some aspects, I think that there will be no going back from how it was before. But yeah, I don't necessarily know what you would mean by supporters being or reacting unpeacefully. Will you still watch Benidorm Fest if Spain decide not to participate in the contest? I'm gonna give it a chance. This year, it's usually my intention to cover Benidorm Fest because it's a bit easier than other selections. But this past year, I was pretty disappointed with the song quality overall. So I will leave the opportunity open, but I'm not making any promises. Moldova has mastered the funny song genre. Yeah, they're definitely that's like their niche. Trenetul. There we go. Just looking for questions. What do you think is the reason it took 2 years for broadcasters to boycott the situation? Did they think that they wouldn't this well with that they wouldn't do this well with Televote 2 years in a row? So I mean, like, the Televote success isn't like the most crucial problem. Like, the problem for me has always been, and like people have thrown this at me, like being like, how dare you criticize someone who survived the October 7th attacks? And like, my criticisms have been mostly for the institution and the broadcasters and Khan specifically. But it really doesn't matter who represents them. They could be represented by a non-Israeli atheist, and the problem is still their participation and the access of soft power that it gives to them. But anyway, bringing this back to this question, yeah, like I don't necessarily think that the televote success in itself is a problem. It's the exploiting of the televote, through using state-owned social media accounts. This belief that there are voting camps set up by the government, which again, like, treat it as hearsay for the time being, but we might find out in the future that actually has happened. And so trying to use this argument that the governments are not involved when the government is spending all this money to maximize their chances, and then turn that into headlines about Europe stands with Israel. That is the biggest problem, using it as propaganda. As for why it took 2 years, I think it's just like, I think there can be a lot of reasons, but ultimately it's just that Israel politically has always maintained a different relationship. And I remember reading an interview with somebody who was previously with the EBU, who had said something along the lines of, like, getting rid of Russia was easy because Russia didn't have the same kind of relationship with the broadcasters. They were always seen as kind of like the odd one out. So it was like a relatively easy decision to make. I'm not saying that it was easy outright, but that's why it was so swift. Whereas, like, Israel has a lot of partnerships. Even like when Luxembourg returned in 2024, that first national selection was put on by an Israeli company, and it was with someone who had worked previously with the Israeli delegation. And so, like, I just think that they have a lot more friends. And then just in general, when it comes to like public relations of Israel, like, they've always had a different view. People have had a different view of them. So I think that's ultimately what it is, but obviously you could talk at length about that. Oh yes, Sergio Jaén will be leading the artistic direction for Benidorm Fest this year. So yeah, I think the visuals will definitely hold up. What else? Yeah, even if Israel is expelled, the contest reputation has been so damaged that it will take a lot of years to recover. They killed their second golden era in the last 2 years. Yeah, I mean, the 2020s were really strong. Like, the contest was culturally relevant. It had produced, not only like songs that became international hits, but even like, Måneskin. You could argue that Måneskin was the next biggest act to be born out of Eurovision since ABBA and Celine Dion. And like, accepting that like both those acts obviously had other aspects of their career that contributed to their success, but like, they're the two that are often brought up as like examples of when Eurovision was culturally relevant. And now it's not, or like it's fading away. And kind of going back to the like spiritual death of the contest that I was talking about, like, where it's not necessarily about is excluding Israel the right decision from a business point of view, but like, my strong belief is that the song quality in 2025 was directly impacted by the events of 2024. Like, I felt like 2024 was good overall, maybe not the best, but it was pretty good. And 2025 felt like a completely different contest in like every possible way. And so I do think that had 2024 been handled better, we would have seen like the kind of artists, we would have seen a different caliber of artists, not necessarily across the board, because I think that like there were plenty of Eastern European countries that definitely held up the quality. The Baltics in particular this past edition were really strong. Even the DACH countries, like obviously, like, Austria won, Switzerland got top 10. Switzerland had a beautiful performance. It got 0 from the public, but it was beautiful. I loved that. Like, it was a rare moment where I was like, okay, maybe this year isn't such a drag, like, I was like, wow, that's so beautiful. Anyway. And then Germany, while the performance didn't like really hold up that well, it was still like a good song. It was a good modern song. And so, yeah, it wasn't a decline in quality across the board, but like overall, it felt weird. And so, like, I do agree with like the reputational damage, which, remember that word disrepute? I feel like there's a connection there, Okay, let's see. Any other questions? Besides Benidorm Fest, any other national selection that you're looking forward to by the end of this year? I mean, I always look forward to like Festival de Canção and Sanremo and Vidbeer. I've been really getting into Lithuania's selection lately too. And so like I think that will always be something that I at least give an opportunity to at first. If let's say that I listen to the songs when they're released and like they just don't seem like they're worth my time, then I might pass. But yeah, I want to leave that door open. Well, and I guess that's answering this first question here. And thank you so much for your comments. Yeah, Måneskin, Snap, Daddy Freyr. Yeah, Daddy Freyr, man. That I went to see him in, I want to say 2022, and that was one of the like best concerts I've ever been to in my entire life. And so if you have an opportunity to see him, because I believe he is still touring with Montaigne, who is someone who I haven't seen, but they had my favorite song from 2020. Definitely think that consider going. Blech. I know it's an idiotic question, but how do you choose the guests for the various videos, like the Serbian NF one? Can we somehow ask you to join those? So a lot of them have been friends or friends of friends. This year, there were 3 of the people that I featured were my former team members from Eurovox. I don't know how many of them are still with Eurovox, but all of them were there while I was there. And so like when I was doing similar videos on Eurovox for like the national selections, often I would speak to Sanya for Dora and Samuele for Sanremo. But yeah, it's really just like, you know, people that I know. I'm always open to chatting with, to inviting someone new. Ritis, who joined me for the Eurovisia.lt video, the Lithuanian selection. He's not somebody that I had like met in person, but we connected over Instagram. I saw him in the press center in Malmö, and he sent me a message later, and I was like, oh, weren't you there? Like, you should have said hi. And he was like, oh, I didn't know what to say. But like, eventually we ended up chatting, and then he joined me for that video. And then I met him in person. I had a sit down conversation with him in Basel. So yeah, it's really just a matter of, you know, who I think can give me the insights that I'm looking for. Okay, we might, okay. Should Australia return with a national contest in 2026? It wouldn't be a bad idea. I don't know how feasible it is. I always felt like Australia Decides had great variety. It had there were always 1 or 2 entries from Australia Decides that I felt were among the best of all national selection songs from like when looking at the whole year. Execution wise, they definitely I wouldn't say struggled. Like it definitely wasn't as bad as some national selections. But yeah, maybe it was I think it was a big undertaking for SBS, which to my understanding is quite a small broadcaster. But I think that they really maximized, they put a lot of heart into it, and you felt that. So yeah, I would be open to seeing what they would return to. Also, who the fuck of singers would want to participate in Eurovision now that they're at least are openly Zionists? I mean, when you enter the contest with this whole idea of, oh, it's not political, then you can make any excuse. Could it be possible for Morocco or Tunisia to participate if Israel gets banned? Possible, yes. Likely, I don't know. Yeah. I don't really know if I have a lot of insight about that, but like their broadcasters are members, and they, to my understanding, will have a vote. They will have a say in that vote. So yeah. Thank you very much. This is an unrelated question. Could you confirm if you are of Scottish and or Irish ancestry? Yes, I have Scottish roots. I might also have Irish roots. And when I am in Europe and people try and guess where I'm from, I guess they see the beard, and usually their first guess is Ireland. But yes, my last name is Scottish. What are your thoughts on Austria going back to the national selection format? Do you think that it will be just as good as what came out of the internal selections in recent years? It's difficult for me to say because I wasn't following the contest when that was active. I saw like Vincent Bueno's song from 2016, I think, and I didn't think that was any good. But yeah, that's like the only point of reference that I have for Austria's national selection. Any thoughts about Australia just missing out on the final as 11th in semi 2 years in a row? 2024, I can see why, but I really thought 2025 was a lot better than Armenia's song. I thought the song was better in 2025. Absolutely. I thought that the performance, it just wasn't strong enough. And like that looked like bad pantomime as well, I have to say. Though it was like, it had the creativity and like the kind of tongue-in-cheek qualities that we tend to get from Australia, but I just think that it needed to look a bit, I wish they would have leaned a lot more into the kind of psychedelic side of it and just made it look less like a children's entertainment program. So yeah, I did not. Yeah, don't do those DNA tests. If you don't know, I think 23andMe is or was facing bankruptcy, and they had to they put all that data up for sale, so don't do those DNA tests. Which artist non-winning would you like to listen to more among all the Sanremo participants you managed to know during all those extenuating hours of watching Sanremo? I mean, there are a lot like in the moment, because there are so many Sanremo songs that I just love. The one that comes to mind immediately, but like now that although like I'm kind of having my doubts now that I think of it, but like I really liked Latsa's song from 2023, Cenere. I haven't heard anything else of his since then, and I'm also remembering that like that was also a performance that depended a lot on autotune. And one of the curiosities that I had, if Ollie, the winner of Sanremo this year, had gone to Eurovision, is if the lack of autotune would have really affected him. But I mean, Samuele, who has been featured on this channel, he's a big fan of Elodie, and I do also really like Elodie's songs. I don't know if any of them, I don't know if any of the ones that I've heard were like Sanremo winner quality, but I do kind of like her style. You know, I'd really have to think about that. Okay. All right. Oh, hold on. Wait. Willy Peyote is one that thank you for reminding me, Tom Yam, because that is he is somebody that I would like to see. I don't know how realistic his chances are of winning Sanremo. Also Rancore, because I remember like when in the Q&A video I was like kind of theorizing that if we do see a hip-hop song that has like a really strong hip-hop identity that isn't Stefania come to Eurovision, that it would probably come from Italy. And so like both of those guys incorporate hip-hop into their music, although Willy Peyote is like, I guess his is less urban than Rancore's was, and like other ones like Fedez. So yeah, but I was a big fan of both of Willy Peyote's songs. Ayabo saying, I'd love for my country to send something in German, maybe in a dialect. It's been a really long time since we had a song in an Austrian dialect go to ESC. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I'm always of the attitude that like it should be a good sounding song first, because it's abundantly clear to me that for Eurovision, a lot of people like it's not necessarily the kind of song, it's just the language that like really attracts them. And like if that's what you like, then great. But yeah, like I immediately I'm thinking of Aborentina, who represented Germany but were Austrian and Hungarian. But yeah, to have something like that, which is modern and in German and you know in like a local dialect to Austria, then yeah, absolutely. Send kneecap to Eurovision. Yeah, I love when people say these things. Obviously, like, you know, they're like the last people who would agree. But yeah, it's just really funny. Anyway, we're coming close to 2 hours. Okay, you know what? Because we're so close to 2 hours, I will stay on for another 5 minutes. If there's any other questions, then, or just any other comments, you can throw them my way. But for the time being, thank you so much for joining me for this video, and thank you again for all the support on the video. I've been loving the increase in diversity of language in Eurovision 2025 compared to previous years. It was one of the highlights this year. So yeah, like this is the kind of thing for me that is kind of like maybe not negligible. It is encouraging, and I do, when I watched the earlier contests when the language rule was enforced, or I guess like when there was a language rule, it did make it very clear that the contest felt like more of a cultural exchange then than it does now. Now it feels much more, I don't know, like it has more of an international feel, and not everybody, like it's not as much of a priority to sing in your native language. With that said, when there are songs like Baller or Zierm or Burman Laimi, what else did I really like this year? Barabastu. When you can have those songs that are unique and you know, unique in so many ways, not just the language, but also having the language as a feature of that, then like, yeah, I think that's kind of the best thing that you can ask for when it comes to diversity overall. So yes, I definitely agree with that. Thank you, Joseph. I really appreciate your work, Stuart. Even if you opt to boycott Eurovision proper, your coverage is important. Thank you. So maybe I will say this. I do want to address this in kind of like an individual short video, but you guys might be wondering, like, given the things that I've said, what does the future of the channel look like? And so I decided late last year that Basel would be my last one, my last Eurovision, like going there and doing like the really intense video coverage. So yeah, I won't be in Vienna regardless of the decision that's made. With that said, it does not necessarily mean that I'm going to stop making videos about Eurovision. I'm leaving the window of opportunity to do so, and especially with national selections, it's a bit tricky because like most of them exist because they function as a selection for Eurovision. But yeah, I'm not closing the door on making Eurovision videos going forward. But I think at the very least it would be like a video that happens after the contest that kind of summarizes the events, you know, similar to the few that I've done these past few years. Not a question, but we are waiting for a live with you and Gabe in the future. That might happen. We are in touch a lot more now. You know, he of course reached out to me after that video, and yeah, like we have known each other since last year, but like, you know, more sort of like acquaintances. But yeah, like I've always had his back. He does great stuff. So yeah, that might happen. Muchas gracias. Oh, wow. Thank you. A breath of fresh air in the ESC community. Keep up the good work and always speak up, since many don't, unfortunately. That might change as well. I think it is slowly starting to change, but yeah, it's some people who have been quiet might not be so quiet anymore. Thank you, D Fromage. Cupcake for San Marino. Jeez. I mean, they missed the opportunity on the 69th edition. That should have been when we saw acts like Cupcake. Hazel Brugger hasn't said anything about that horrible phrase she sung in the interval. Well, I mean, maybe she will, but if you missed the beginning of this, I shot that video back in June, and I was expecting to have it out a lot sooner. And so I don't know, like, so much time has passed that I don't think that like anyone feels as if they need to respond to certain things. But yeah, I do think at the end of the day, it was an oversight that had much bigger repercussions than they were expecting. But yeah, and I mean, I also would say the same about sticking to the United by Music comment slogan. There was somebody who actually left a really good comment, and I really liked the way that they phrased it, and it was pretty much like arguing that it's not the EBU's job to impose unity on us. Like it's a nice byproduct of the contest, but it's not necessarily a requirement, nor is it an obligation for them to impose it on us. And so that's why I think it was a poor decision to make that so much a part of their brand, because they can make anything a part of their brand. They don't even need to make it like this whole like, oh yeah, everyone's here and we're all peaceful and all that. Like, it's nice, but it's not convincing. Stuart and Gabe playing Minecraft. I have never played Minecraft. I don't know how old you think I am, but I've always like, I have nothing against Minecraft, but I've never played it myself. Yeah, I know who Cupcake is, but I'm not necessarily familiar with their repertoire. Okay, yeah, definitely get some sleep. Thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, so anyway, yeah, we've now crossed the 2-hour mark, so I think I am gonna leave it here. I'm also meeting some friends today because it is a beautiful day in October in Toronto, so I want to make the most of it. But thank you guys so much for tuning in for this chat and for supporting the video. Again, like I'm running out of ways to express my gratitude. I will try and find other ways to express it to you. Obviously, now that we've reached 10,000 subscribers, apparently, because I can't actually see here, but you guys have told me that you know, there could be an opportunity to do something special for that. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything left to say, but yeah, I'm grateful, so grateful for your support, for all the wonderful comments that you've shared with me, and yeah, I think that's just about everything that can be said. Okay, have a great weekend, enjoy yourselves, and we'll catch up sometime soon.